Vinny.
Hey, I'm Vince Goodwill, Yahoo Sports.
Vince.
Good to see you. In contrast to the Luka-Doncic trade, there was the Jimmy Butler long drawn.
I thought that was the trade before it went here in Golden
You thought
State.
that was the trade? Okay. Secondary trade. It was long, drawn out, suspensions, mudslinging on both sides. All of these trades seem to have the constant theme of longer money, second aprons. Are you concerned that the new CBA is going to create more contentious player franchise standoffs like we've had?
No, I'm not concerned that that will be the result of the new CBA. I actually think that what the CBA was designed to do, honestly, is to force teams to make difficult decisions. I think teams are still finding their way a bit through this new second apron and what it means. But for us, look, it's no secret that part of the design of that CBA and pushing down high-end spending was to create more parity in the league and to do a better job distributing our best players around the 30 teams. And I think you're seeing that to a certain extent already. I'll note, I think new CBAs are always difficult to predict. I think it was only a few months ago when the conventional wisdom around the league seemed to be that we sort of spoiled the excitement around the trade deadline, that the day and age of these great trades, right, the deadline weren't going to happen anymore. I think that we then just saw more players moved before the trade deadline than any time in the history of the league. So I think there's two sides to every trade, and for the best aspect of trades is that it potentially creates a sense of renewal in some markets, sense of excitement in others. There, of course, is a downside from a player standpoint. Putting aside a contentious situation, park that for a second. I know, because I talk directly to players, as do you, it's incredibly disruptive in a player's life to get traded. And many players are of the age where they have young children, and kids potentially get dislocated, mid-year from school. I think it's part of the grand bargain of playing in the NBA in return for guaranteed contracts and strong, union representation, and a lot of money, honestly. So it's all in the back and forth sort of that is part of playing in professional sports. Certainly that's not unique to the NBA. So I don't think it's bad. We're always looking at our CBAs. It's like I talked about before with the game. Will there be opportunities to improve it? Presumably, yes. And I feel like as through successive collective bargaining agreements, we've always found ways to tweak things and make things a little better in certain cases. But I look now, most importantly, at the level of parity we have in the league. Of course, 6 different champions over the last 6 years. But just look at the season so far, where you have Oklahoma City and Cleveland with top records going into All-Star. That's without anybody. The great news is I don't hear many people saying, and by the way, there's smaller markets. That the goal is that no longer becomes part of the discussion, that you have a 30-team league and teams are judged based on quality of management, desirability for players. Luck will play into that, as it always does, but that's what we're trying to create here at the league office.
Standing on the right, Tim.
Now that we've now that Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry have won their arbitration case earlier this week, do you expect the Board of Governors to ratify them as the new owners of the Wolves?
My expectation is that will move forward, but first, Glenn Taylor does have a decision to make as to whether to appeal that arbitration decision. That's Glenn's decision to make. I haven't talked to him directly about that. I think, though, that A-Rod, certainly Mark Lowry, are well known to the league at this point. They've already been vetted and approved as minority owners. I think they understood that the league had no role in this arbitration. That was something they had agreed to as part of their purchase agreement. And I think now that the arbitration has been resolved, I think they will, as I said, Glenn Taylor has a decision to make. If he chooses to appeal it, obviously we will wait till there's finality as that process, and if he doesn't, we will move forward right away and continuing the remaining part of our vetting process, and then it would go to the governors for a vote.
If he doesn't appeal, though, would you expect them to be ratified after this vote?
The only reason I'm not going to answer that is that I don't want to turn the Board of Governors' role into a rubber stamp. That is a decision they need to make. we should conclude the vetting process. I know Mark and Alex understand that. That's a process that every governor in this league has gone through. I will say, standing here today, I don't see any reason why it won't be approved. But again, we need to follow the process.
On the right front row, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Nichols, Fox
Hi,
Sports.
Rachel.
A bunch of your All-Stars today were asked if they had your job as NBA commissioner, what would they would do? And given any topic in the entire league being open to them, the topic that most of the guys hit on was officiating. And Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Damian Lillard, Cade Cunningham, a handful of other guys talked about different aspects of that. Steph Curry was talking about transparency. I know you guys already did the last 2-minute report, but he would like to see the official grades and the way that system works for each official. Damian Lillard was talking, Ant Edwards was talking about text and how he'd like the standard for that to change. And they had different aspects to it. But I guess what I wanted to know from you is, how much do you want or need to be responsive when some of your top players are talking about this kind of thing? And again, given any topic out there, this is what they kept talking about today.
I remember David Stern used to say, when he was asked about officiating when he was commissioner, he said 100 years from now, whatever changes, that somebody's going to be standing here and they're going to ask them about officiating and be unhappy with it. So that issue obviously isn't going to go away. I just will say that we welcome direct feedback from all players in the league, whether they're top players or not. And I think it is an ongoing discussion. And we're always looking to improve officiating. NBA players are members of our competition committee, so we talk directly about it there. And we have our own conversations with Andre Iguodala and the Players Association about how we potentially can improve officiating. A couple other points. One is, I'm very hopeful that there will be some technological solves when it comes to officiating. I think we've talked about this before. People are familiar with Hawkeye technology owned by Sony. It's used in tennis. We've been working with them for the last few years about creating the objective ability for example, out-of-bounds calls. As I said before, there's 100 fingers on the floor at any point, different body parts, so it's not as technically straightforward or easy as I might have thought it would have been as a non-technologist. But they're working hard on that, foot on the line, et cetera. Goaltending, other calls like that, anything that we can be objectively decided. I think to the extent that we can do that, and we'll get that done in the next couple of years, it will then allow the officials to be more focused on the truly subjective calls, block charge, et cetera. Is there a foul? The sufficiency of the contact. So we're working on that. What's hard is, on some of these calls, you said Anthony Edwards mentioned technicals. It's very hard to have bright lines on some of those things. There's a little bit of when you see it. I know that's not always satisfying to our players, but we work directly with them. We look at a lot of tape with them. We're players and teams on occasion will come into league office and say, we want to talk about the way a particular player is being officiated, and maybe there's something that the officials are missing. And just lastly, to your point about transparency, I think that's one that the officials also have their own union. Everyone